Namaste. This is just some reflections on Saraswathi, the deity that we will be inquiring into in this term's courses, whether it's the dance class or the dance contemplation class or the philosophy talks. Saraswati is a well-known deity. She is very popular, and today we really see her mostly as the deity of knowledge. So we understand her to be someone that blesses us with knowledge of any kind, whether that is science or the arts or literature or whatever, all kinds of knowledge. And so she is worshipped by those who seek learning or seek knowledge. The Vedic Saraswati is quite a different deity. By Vedas, I mean the oldest texts, the oldest philosophical texts in India. And in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest of the Vedas, Saraswati is a very powerful deity. She is one of the significant deities invoked in the Rig Veda. And it is important to actually see where Saraswati is pointing towards, or what is the practice of Saraswati, particularly in these times. Because Saraswati is an invitation to not only perceiving the truth that is the alignment of ourself, our consciousness, ourself, with reality, or with consciousness with a capital C. Not just that, but also, and this is where it is more precious, but also the ability to bring that experience, bring that insight or that perception into expression or form. And this is intensely precious because really that experience of alignment, that experience of unity or oneness is inexpressible. It is beyond language, because all our languages are the languages of duality. They are not the languages of the expression of unity, because language itself is based on dichotomies and opposites and things that are relative or comparisons. So they are not really meant to capture this perception of unity. And therefore, a deity that gives us the power to bring that experience into form is intensely important. Because we live in times where there is a complete fragmentation of our narration of reality. It's almost like we can't bring all these different narratives together. So we have this narrative of economics, then the narrative of physical, biological health, then there's the narrative of well-being, then there's the narrative of creativity. And it's like all of these things cannot coexist. It's like we have to make choices about one or the other at the expense of something else. And so today, to me, more than at any other time, at least in my lifetime, it becomes very clear that a fragmented storying of reality creates disorder. So it's disorder both within us and disorder outside of us. And so the ability to bring into form or into expression that perception of unity is really important. It's not just for the person who is bringing it into expression, but also for those who experience that. It's of absolute importance in these times, so that we can share that perception, that what does it feel? What is that experience like? What is that perception? So that we can actually share it. In the Rig Veda, Saraswati is usually invoked, as actually many deities are, but the way to approach her is through yajna or offering. And she graces those who approach her with offering. And that doesn't mean offering of things, but it is an offering of ourselves. And by that, I mean, we have to offer up our stories, offer up our demands, offer up our entitlements and our ideas and our expectations. So that is the yajna, that offering up. And when we offer that up, it is said that the movement that she awakens is often compared to the power of horses, of herds of horses. And so it's this dynamic vitality. So I always say this, that contemplation is not a passive, it's not something that is meant for people that want an escape, or people that just want to have a rest or relax. It is actually an intensely dynamic, active practice. And so why? Because we need to be strong, to be brave, to be able to hold this experience, which is like this, the thundering of horses across the landscape. And that is how it is described in the Rig Vedas, that awakening of wisdom, or that awakening of that knowing is compared to that. Saraswati is also invoked in alignment with two other deities. One is Ila, and Ila is a really interesting deity because Ila is invoked both as a female and a male. And so Ila very clearly points to this movement away from duality, from holding on to these definitions, black and white, male and female, happy and unhappy, the sky and the earth, this kind of duality that we create in order to control the narratives of reality. And so Ila is an absolute signal to the place of knowing, the place of perception, being one of non-duality. The other deity that is invoked with Saraswati is Mahi. And Mahi means enormity, something that's infinite, that's huge, that's beyond our conception of space. It's of magnitude that we cannot fathom. And so what Mahi signals is that this movement is something that is beyond time and space. So it is something that it removes us not just from this languaging of duality in Ela, but even of these parameters of time, time of yesterday, today, tomorrow, that sort of linearity, and space. So we divide it up into the earth and the sky and, the cosmos and not cosmos, all of that. It's as if the whole thing is just this one enormous, infinite experience without a beginning and an end and a middle. And then when we come to Saraswati, she is the inspiration, the essence, and the source. So in the Rasa class, we will look at a beautiful poem of Subramanya Bharati, Vellai Thamare. And that absolutely goes to the heart of Saraswati, wherein he says she is the joy, the inspiration that moves the heart of poets so that they are able to create poetry that brings untold pleasures to those that receive it, to those that hear it. So here is the core of what is arts in this space, in the Saraswati space. How does the arts become the language of truth? The word that is used here is vach, which very narrowly translated in English, it means word. But in the Vedas, vach herself, or vag, herself is a deity, a very, very powerful deity. And vak or vach is that expression that is completely aligned to that experience of unity. So it is, in other words, expressing the inexpressible. So that which cannot be expressed in our usual languages, that is expressed in a form, in an expression, in an embodiment, and that is vach. So here the kavi is not just a poet that writes a poem, but a kavi is anybody, a sculptor, a dancer, a musician, a priest who chants a mantra, where their expression is coming out of their experience of that unity. And that is art. And that is the only art in the Saraswati space. So art is not a personal creative expression. It is not an expression of our daily experiences, our kind of experiences in duality or our story, but it is the experience of our contemplation, our contemplative wisdom, the insight, the perception, that experience of oneness that we have perceived. When that comes into form, that is art for Saraswati. In fact, it is the only way you can express that experience. So I'm not saying that you can't have that experience. Of course you can. But if you want to express that, so you can have that experience. For example, yogis, if they approach yoga in that way, you have that experience. But if you wish to bring it into Vach, then it is aesthetic, it is artistic. Consider even when you chant a mantra, because mantras were chanted, usually there was a modulation of sound, and there was also movement, always movement with the mantra. Consider the aesthetics of a ritual. And of course, when you come into the more performing kind of aesthetics, whether it's dance or music, that the role of aesthetic languages to communicate this experience is very, very precious. So we live in these times where the arts has been considered all over the world as non-essential. They have been categorized as, something that's entertainment and therefore non-essential. But when we think about the arts in this contemplative way, when it is a contemplative practice, there is no other time that where this is more important than now. I'm not saying, by the way, that all art has to be contemplative, and I have no judgment at all about arts that offer entertainment. I think everything has a role, but I'm specifically here talking about practices like Indian temple dance, which was essentially a contemplative practice. And as Vach, what it offered to people was a taste, the rasa, the taste of that experience of unity, that perception of unity, that glimpse into what does it feel if we are completely aligned with absolute presence or consciousness, or however you call it, with reality with a capital R. What is that experience feel like? And so the seer, the poet, that is able to bring that into form and share it with those that come into his or her presence, seeking contemplation or interested in contemplation. That is an absolutely precious practice. So I hope that together we will inquire into this very quiet but intensely powerful of goddesses, Saraswathi. And I do hope that you will accept her invitation into the dynamic stillness, the power and the vitality, as it says in the Vedas, of these thundering horses, which coexists with this quietness, gentleness, grace, and spaciousness. So I hope that we will all be able to accept her invitation and be in the abode of Saraswati during this term.